Hello, I'm Marcia Boyles, and I'm delighted this morning to introduce our two guests who are going to be talking about the Greenspring History Forum.
Delighted to be here.
We're glad to have you both. John Lee is well known to many of us, particularly here in Channel 6, because he works in a number of different capacities. Vance Morrison, you do not work in Channel 6, but you also are a friend of Channel 6. So we're just delighted to have both of you.
Thank you.
Is this the first time you have come on to Channel 6 to talk about just the History Forum?
It's the first time that we have. And as far as I know, in the last few years, there hasn't been a discussion about it.
No, I haven't heard one. That's why I was asking, John. Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I think it's high time. Certainly, the History Forum has a long history here at Greenspring.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about how it got started, when it got started?
Yes, go back to 2005, which was before my time here. I'm just a kid, but a man by the name of Jasper Vink was instrumental. He was a doctor from South Africa who was noted and worked in several countries. Ended up retired here, which is not where he ever lived. But he retired here, and
he was known as a Renaissance man.
A Renaissance man. He was quite, you probably knew him.
I didn't know him, but I certainly knew him by reputation. He had a fine reputation.
And a group of people, Jane Curtis, Ray Magliano, Sim Taylor, people like that, had a common interest in serious history. And they started a program, I think it was called Conversations in History.
That's
and
right.
They would give a program in the academic room for those who were interested in what I call serious history, classical history.
Yes.
And a paper would be written and be presented in the academic room. And then I think Jane Curtis probably would do one on Channel 6. I don't know if it's the same program or some of the programs.
Exploring History.
Exploring History. She still does.
Yes.
And that's wonderful. Jasper ran the program mainly until he passed away. Other people picked up the pieces and carried on the program. We get down to 2015, Bill Shank was one of the leaders, and Bill took over the program and ran it really until about a year or so ago.
Yes.
And Bill was, he innovated. He brought in some broader topics, made it more of a popular history other than more classical history.
Yes, and by classical, you really are talking about academic, aren't you, John, primarily?
Yes, I looked for a word, and that was the best word I could come up with, was classical.
Yeah.
Ancient history and that sort of thing, yes.
And done in a more academic kind of fashion is my recollection. Joe Kyle was also involved.
Joe Kyle was
who's
involved.
also academic.
Yes, and that Bill's idea was to have them more frequently, to have popular topics, and more people would come in and increase the audience. And we've continued those innovations and brought them out ourselves. But we built on that legacy of good history.
Yes.
And talking about it. So we appreciate what the pioneers did in building a base for this. And then Bill started being a transition man, Bill Shank, and bringing us, he got it up to where he was having 2 programs a month with some off months in the summertime. We now have it so we run twice a month, every month, except November and Christmas, November and December because of Thanksgiving,
the
Christmas.
Holidays.
Yes, the holidays. We have one a month in those 2 months. So we run now 22 programs a month. I mean a year, 22 programs
22 programs. John, are you still holding it in the academic room?
No. This past year we focused on trying to have attractive programs and promoting them more so more people know about them. Trying to make them attractive, and we've eventually, the crowds kept getting bigger and bigger, and we eventually outgrew the academic room. We now meet in the theater twice a month, second and fourth Thursdays, at 2 o'clock now, instead of 3. And we typically run 130 plus or minus.
That's an amazing number.
Yes. We had 150 as our peak so far.
Is that right?
Yeah, 150 people.
That's got to be one of the most popular of the activities here.
Right. It is very popular, and I think one of the reasons it's popular is that we try to have a sort of a potpourri of subjects with a wide variety. You use the word eclectic, and there are a various assortment. For example, if you have a program on local historic houses, then you have a certain set of people who say, I really like that.
Yes.
And they come, and other people come too, but you might get a special group there. Somebody talking about military history might attract a different group of people. But there's enough people who come every time, combined with the special interest that comes at other times, that we keep a large attendance.
Well, that is truly an amazing number. I have to say I'm impressed, and particularly since you have it twice a month.
Yes.
Yes, I went through your list, and as I told you, John, my immediate reaction was quirky and eclectic. You have some sort of offbeat kinds of subjects as well. Let me ask you this: how do you choose the topics and the speakers?
Well, we have a small group that we call the team, and John and Joe Kyle was a member, and of course Dave Hall is a member now. And they picked me up too along the way because I'd given a couple of presentations, I guess. But we decide among all the various candidates how we're going to fit them in and when we're going to fit them in, and then try to clear it with the speaker to make sure they're available for that period in time. And then we have a whole checklist that I guess John will go over of the things that we do to make it happen properly. But the selection of the topic is among the team, and we say this is an appropriate topic or it's not. And
now,
most of the time it is.
Do people approach you, Vance? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, they do. Well, that's one of the things that happens. The people approach us. Sometimes we'll go out and try to seek somebody who's talking on a specific topic we'd like to discuss. And that's happened recently with the Mayflower that's coming up next year.
400 years.
Or actually this year, but it's a topic that we really wanted to discuss around Thanksgiving time. So, and there are other people who come into the audience and they say, well, gee whiz, that's something I'd like to talk about. Then they contact us afterwards. So.
You'd be amazed at where we get topics and ideas. I'll give you one example that may not be typical, but it's not atypical either. A new couple moved into Greenspring. They attended, not long ago, they attended the history forum, because they were interested, and they came to a couple of history forums. They told their daughter about it, who lives somewhere in the area, and the daughter says, hey, my, what was it, history professor, biology professor, math professor, somebody, in high school loves history, and he's written several books, and he just wrote a book about the tomb of the unknown soldier. And she called her parents, and somehow the information got back to us. I called the daughter and found out more about this man, and found out he's a good speaker. He goes all over speaking. Called him, and now he's on the program. He's going to be speaking about the history of Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, but in the context of the history of the Arlington Cemetery. So you know, all these roundabout processes, how did that come to be? But it came. And we get all kinds of feedback. I've had one man who gets around to other meetings, and he hears people talking about things just informally, and he stopped me twice at the elevator in 2 weeks in a row and said, I've got a great speaker for you, and told me what the topic was. They're on our list now. They're in what I call our digital cigar box. You know, you had a cigar box, you used to throw all your miscellaneous things into it.
Okay.
We keep a digital cigar box full of topics, and once we're full for the year, then we start working on next year and working with the people. So that's all kinds of sources.
The criteria that we apply is something other than just something that might appear in the memories brochure that comes out periodically. It's not just personal memories. We're talking about something a little deeper. It's not true academic history necessarily. I personally gave a presentation on my experiences at Tiananmen Square, the Chinese crackdown. I was there. And so an eyewitness account, but it tended towards the history side rather than my
I was going to say, you put it into a
recollections.
historical
Exactly.
perspective.
Exactly, and that's what we try to do.
It's a broader interest than just your personal story.
Yes, that's what I certainly would assume.
Yeah.
I was amazed that you had a whole year's worth of programs already set up. John, why don't you, or Vance, either one of you, why don't you give us some samples of topics here?
We do have the year filled out, and we published a page full, and there wasn't quite enough room, so we'll update it later. But we have all the years, all the months of the year booked now. And for example, to give you some idea of the variety of topics that we cover, next week, what day? Yeah, next week, Thursday, 2 p.m. in the theater, our resident Tom Haiti is going to be discussing how the excuse me, how the Minnesota iron ore reserves helped us to win World War II. In fact, we might not have won without it. And people don't think about that. What was the iron ore that you won the war with? And he's going to talk about that, and that's pretty interesting. And then we're going to have a talk by Dave Hall himself, Dave, part of our team. And Dave's going to talk about sort of the history of lumbering and camping, this kind of thing, in the Maine woods. The Maine woods are sort of a unique part of the country. And he's going to tell us about that. It's a history of how that sort of came to be what it was. Coming up in February, we have excellent programs. We've got Gil Jones. You know Gil Jones?
I do know Gil Jones.
Gil has been working
Very good
on,
speaker.
very nice man. He's been working on a history of black inventors. And, excuse me, and he is going to talk about what he calls the real McCoy, because that's one of the inventors. He's going to cover black inventors, but those who did very significant inventions and innovations from slavery days, pre-Civil War, all the way up to modern times. And that should be fascinating. He's working hard on that.
You know, John, that reminds me that the black and white group here, and Gil Jones is an active member of that group, often has historical presentations too, and some coordination with them would probably be greatly beneficial to both groups.
We do.
Oh, do you? All right, good, because they've had some fine speakers.
Because one of our concepts, ideas is, if we do something we think of particular interest to some club organization, we invite them to co-sponsor that meeting with us.
Oh, all right. I didn't realize you did that. Good.
We did that with the American Legion. I belong to the American Legion, and the speaker happened to be the wife of one of the officers in the post here. And she gave a good presentation on war memorials in the Washington, D.C. area. So we had a combined History Forum, American Legion Post meeting that day. And the Legionnaires all wore their caps, and we talked about the Legion a little bit. Gave them a little bit of publicity too, but it was an example that John was talking about where we do combine on occasion.
Good. I warned you ahead of time that I was going to fuss at you about something, and so I'm going to stop and fuss at you. You don't have enough women, women's topics, women's oriented topics, in my estimation, and I certainly think you need some women on the leadership team. So now I've done my little preaching.
Let me use this
I'll get off my soapbox.
as a spot for advertising. We are looking for new members on our team. And if any of you ladies out there want to join our team and help us come up with good ideas.
They don't even have to be ladies. They could just be women.
Even better. Just women.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Young, old, whatever. It makes no difference. And so we're looking for people for our leadership team. We'd like to have more women represented on the team.
Yes.
And more topics representing women's interest. We do get a lot of women who come to the history.
Yes,
forum.
well, you probably noticed that that's the majority of residents.
Yeah, that's right, yes. There's one coming up that I think everybody's going to find interesting, particularly the people who've been involved in the players. John Carl
Yes.
is going to give a presentation on, he's working on the title, he's trying to tease us with a title, but it's going to be on sort of the evolution of the theater. And you know John, he's
John will
always
do a fine job.
great sense of humor.
Yes, he does.
Good speaker. So that'll be a fascinating
And he certainly
topic.
knows his theater.
He certainly does. That'll be, and we go through, we got things about treasure building, about Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, I mentioned that one called Scoundrels and Swindlers. This is Teapot Dome. You know, some of
I thought that was a fun title.
we had to stay away from the present. We pushed it back in the past. And as I said, one of the ones we want to try, a new concept, is to, because there's so many YouTubes and other kinds of things out there you can find, historical in nature. We're going to try to show a film of, has to be a reenactment, they didn't have film then, of Frederick Douglass giving a talk, I think on the 4th or 5th of July, way back before the Civil War.
Do you actually have is there a copy of the, okay.
Well, I haven't
Wonderful.
seen it, but Dave has it, and we have it. We're going to start ahead of time and show it. It's about, so what does the 4th of July mean to a slave? And that's, you know, think about that. Everybody's celebrating the 4th of July, and the slaves are there.
And was it before emancipation?
Yes.
Okay.
It was in the 1850s.
Oh, in the 1850s?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a marvelous approach.
It is, and we'll try, invite the appropriate groups to come listen to that. In fact, I've talked to several of them now about possible outside speakers we could come to accompany this short film. It's only, what, 15 minutes or so, and accompany this film to be in their interest. Somebody coming in to look at history of those times and know some more about Frederick Douglass and that sort of thing.
Oh, John, I think that sounds
Cheryl
terrific.
Muir, who runs the
Yes.
foreign film program here,
Yes.
is one of our speakers and presenters, and she's going to talk about Boys Town.
I saw
evolution and institution into a home, and I can't wait to see that. I've been giving money to them every Christmas for decades, but I sure love to hear about
Good.
background story.
Yes, I noticed that topic. I think it sounds very interesting.
By the way, we have approached and twisted the arm as much as we could of several women here to be on the team. It so happens they're so busy. They said, maybe next year, can't do it this year. We have some good candidates out there that who would be on the team and would bring a lot to the team.
Yes.
And would certainly broaden the set of subjects that we deal with. So we're looking forward to finding
Yes.
One thing, do I have a second here? We do hand out this program list.
I was going to ask you that.
People can pick it up when they leave each history forum. It's updated periodically, and also they can sign up for receiving our notifications of programs upcoming.
Now, do you do it by email?
By email.
All right.
We do it by email, and also we have copies at the meetings.
That's right.
People can pick up a copy. But
And they
that's
could get them from
expensive
you
to keep
too, I
running.
assume,
Yes.
as well.
We have
Yes,
a
of
table
course.
outside the room, and they can pick up
Ah,
copies.
okay, good. And is there?
And that's
is
where
there,
they sign up also for the email.
All right, good for you.
Yeah. Which reminds me of some of the things that we do. If someone says, here's what I can talk on, it sounds very interesting, we think the person could be a good speaker, and we agree to that, we set a date, and so as the date approaches, for example, about 2 months out, we stay in touch with that person all the time. By the way, that's something we didn't mention, is that one of us on the team is assigned as a host to each speaker.
Okay.
And our job is to stay in touch with that person and take them all the way through the process, including till post-speech. So
there's nothing casual about this.
No.
Clearly, it pays off.
We work with the team also on audio-visual a day or two before the presentation. Make sure they're comfortable with the use of the mics. What kind of presentation, but do they need pointers?
Any graphics or anything of that
and how
sort?
those are going to be handled.
Right.
Make sure they work.
That
Now,
helps.
about 2 months out from the time a speaker is going to do their speech, presentation, for example, if I'm hosting, I will contact them again and say, look, I'm going to prepare a poster to go on the bulletin board.
Yes.
And I want a nice, colorful poster, and I want some really teasing kind of comments that I can put on the poster that people would be interested in going. And
You do a good job with those, John.
well, I haven't done very many. Vance has done more, and Dave Hall has done lots
All
of
of
them.
you have done a good job. They really are eye-catching.
That's what we try to do,
Yeah.
catch people's attention. Otherwise, there's so much stuff on the bulletin board, you can
Yeah.
walk by
Agreed.
and it's all a blur. And say, I didn't see that. Well, so give me the final title of the topic, and give me some comments, and tell me if you want an image of some kind. You want someone's picture, you want an image of some kind on that poster. I get that, and within 2 or 3 days, I put together a poster. And once the poster is completed, I run it back by the speaker and says, it's okay. Send it back, it's okay. Or we make changes. I send it to Janelle, and within a few days, it's on not only on the bulletin board, and run it, at least 30 days ahead of time, but it's also sent to Amber Jordan, who's one of the resource people, works with Janelle, and Amber sees that it gets on the TV scroll, it gets on my Ericsson, it gets on.
Now, that's the usual,
Flash.
John. I don't think we have to belabor that because that is the usual process.
Yeah, it does. It goes all out. But what's a little different here is that we maintain an email list
Yes.
of people who come and signed up and said they wanted notices.
Yes.
A week ahead of time, we send them out a notice about the meeting and what it's all about. And a day or two before, we'll send them a reminder. And we also put it on Grix.
All right, now let me stop. I think, again, these are the usual processes and procedures for meetings. If somebody has a topic in which they have an interest and would be willing to come and talk to you, do they write up a paper to present to you about the topic? Do they come
That's not
give it to you
necessary.
verbally? How do they do this?
Just come over and call us, see us, sit across the table from us at dinner, whatever, and tell us what they're proposing.
What they have in mind?
And then we'll develop it. The host will be assigned if we accept the topic, and then flesh it out and find out exactly what the details are. In one case, we had to back off after getting into the details on a proposed topic, but that rarely happens. And so,
What would be a topic, an example of a topic that you would think was probably inappropriate?
well, it wasn't so much the topic, but it was just the length of what was going to have to happen.
I see.
And it just didn't fit our standard format. So,
Okay.
and we've got to work around on that, and everybody's happy. So, but it's an interesting process that we go through, and I think most people are pretty happy with it.
Well,
the way it turns out.
and I'm sure that you get some speakers who are polished and they've given the presentation many times before, and others have an interest in something that they really haven't put together yet. So you really help them with that.
We try to.
We try to stay away from big controversies. Like we stay out of current politics, we stay out of contentious religious issues and things like that. So it's one way we avoid having conflict.
Do you have any debates or dialogue kind of presentations?
I don't think.
We, no, but that is a good idea. But
It
you
might
have
be
to
kind of
really-
interesting.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. You'd have to manage that very carefully so that it didn't get out of hand or get run too long or whatever. By the way, that's part of what we do is we have about a 40-minute presentation and leave 15, 20 minutes for comment
Q&As.
discussion. And the reason I mentioned that is because some of the most interesting meetings sometimes come when the audience gets involved.
I can imagine.
Yep.
And people say, wait a minute, you're talking about Tiananmen Square, I choose that as an example. Somebody else would say, I was there too, and let me tell you what I saw. And you say, wow, okay, we've added to the history here.
Yes.
And in this kind of a place where we live,
I was going to say this community.
That's likely.
oh, you have so many State Department people, military people,
Yes.
others,
Yes.
women who have been all kinds of places and jobs in the world, that you get some good commentary sometimes.
I can only imagine. Yeah, all right, so that each presentation does allow time for Q&As.
Yes.
All
That's an
right.
essential part of it, as John pointed out. And we have microphones, 2 microphones, and one of us is under each of the 2 aisles in the theater. And the person, we insist they use a microphone so that other people can hear the question and the answers, and it works out a lot better. Some people, I don't need a microphone. Well, maybe they don't, but other people do. So.
Always.
So it becomes
Participatory.
Thank you, John. I just am not, that word is just not coming out of my mouth. No, I think that's a good thing, and I'll bet that is much of the fun often.
Yes, it is.
So, to tie this all up now, I see we're down to the last minute or two here. You are still looking for members of your team, and if members, if there are residents who are interested, they could contact either one of you or Dave Hall. You are always looking for topics and speakers, so you again would be interested in having people either talk to you or write something up. Your meetings are...
Our meetings, and thank you for mentioning that, our meetings are every second Thursday and fourth Thursday of each month.
Second and fourth
But the thing
Thursdays.
that is new is we now, starting this year, starting next week, we meet at 2 p.m. in the theater rather than 3 p.m.
All right.
It's been 3 p.m. for years, and so we've got to get people to remember
Used to
that.
2
yes.
o'clock.
But we did that because people, when we run from 3 to 4, lots of people want to leave early to get in the dining line.
Sure.
Or somewhere else had to go.
Sure.
So for the convenience of the people coming, we shifted from 3 to 2, so it's 2 o'clock.
All right, 2 o'clock on the second and fourth Thursdays in the theater.
That's correct.
All right. Well, gentlemen, this has been extremely interesting, and I hope we get some new folks coming in who didn't know about the history forum, or even some residents that have been here a long time that didn't know about it. So it sounds like a wonderful project that both of you do here, and the list of topics is terrific. So
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the
thanks for
opportunity.
coming today.